Marchioro, time to talk SANFL, and no one knows it better than our next guest, Luke Marchioro. Luke, how are you, mate?
Good, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Mate, I know it's early days, only a few weeks in, but geez, there's been some pretty good footy.
It's been a really good standard this year. The competition seems to be very even. After last year where Glenelg were 15 or 16 and 0 and raced out of the blocks and everyone was chasing them, this year the competition seems pretty level, and probably 8 of the 10 teams could probably have a claim to play finals at this point.
And they're pretty good. They were really good games on the weekend. A couple of really close ones, a couple of really tight ones, which we thought would happen. We thought they were going to be close, weren't they? Was there a game that jumped out at you? Was there a team that jumped out at you on the weekend?
Well, I think probably the game of the weekend was the South Port game in terms of how close it was. I think South Adelaide, who have just sort of had a lot of turnover with obviously guys getting drafted and guys moving on to other opportunities, have come back into the team. So they've got a different group of guys coming through, and they're just sort of getting reacclimatised and adding new blokes in, and they were able to find a way to win on the weekend with their recruit from North Hobart, Jai Menzies, kicking 6 goals and getting them over the line.
And the same, and of course the usual suspect, Gibbsy picked up about 39 or something, some possessions. He's going to be he is a handy player, isn't he, for South Adelaide?
He's just a class above, I think, and when you put him in a side like that, and you've got good players around him as well, and these are guys that are coming through now. Guys like Hayden Sampson, who's a young kid coming through.
Yeah.
They've got kids that have been there for 2 or 3 years, and they're not kids anymore. They're mature bodies, and they're able to handle the rigour of it as well. So they're going to keep growing south, and I think they're going to be one to watch in the second half of the year as they sort of kick everything into gear and get themselves rolling into the
a couple of good recruits here, mate.
They've got some good ones, mate. If you're talking about teams that are going to be around the mate, again, we're only a couple of games in. Glenelg Sturt was an 8-pointer. Glenelg get that one. I'm interested in your take, mate, though. We've had coaches missing already because of COVID. Big numbers of players missing. Some clubs are coming in with 6 or 7 on game day, COVID wipeout, yet they're still playing a good brand of footy. Are the reserves much stronger for the last couple of years that's leading to that, do you reckon?
I think it's probably hard to say. I think a lot of teams are going to experience it at some point and have probably practiced a lot for it in terms of having a group of 30 players that might be training every week. It ends up being 45 or 50, and you start growing your depth a little bit as well. So Sturt were a team that probably weren't as affected as much on the weekend. Glenelg missed a few. They missed Alex Martini didn't play. They had a couple of others that were out as well. So I mean, you're going to see it every week from year to year. Teams probably would want to get it out of the way in one hit, and then it's 3 months of not worrying about it, I guess. But I think teams are just going to have to adapt, and it's the new normal, I guess. And these teams with caretaker coaches seem to be winning anyway.
They're okay. Yeah, well, North didn't win with their caretaker coach, so Reeva's under a bit of pressure there. But the Crows had a full list. I mean, their list at the moment is solid.
And it is. And I think that's the dilemma with them is last year they had 12 or 13 out, and then they're playing these kids that are coming out of, amateur league, and they're playing these guys that are coming out of Division 3, Division 4 amateur league, whereas when you've got 20 guys that are training professionally every week, it does make a massive difference in terms of what you can put out in terms of your product on the field every week. So I think that they're going to be, as long as they're healthy at AFL level, they're going to be really strong and hard to beat at SANFL level.
And Port, on the other hand, on the other side of the...
What's going on there, mate? What have you got?
Well, they've got no players, mate. They rang me last week. Yeah, see if the old Rossies footy boots ready. But they are on the other end of the scale. They've got a lot of players out, and of course they are playing a lot of these blokes who are coming from amateur league, etc.
And it's when you get to that point, and it's certain get to a tipping point, and it might be 5, it might be 6, but when you get to more than that, it does become really hard to make up the difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
You see the quality, even with these other teams. Like you look at a team that they played like South on the weekend that added Ryan Garthwaite, who was ex-AFL, Oscar Claverino, who was ex-AFL, and you're going against guys that are prepared and professionally prepared, and it does make things difficult for those teams as well. So there's always a bit of imbalance in that in terms of where those teams sit in the competition.
But the blokes they brought in, Port, still couldn't kick. They kicked 14-17 or something. That is really like a cancer going through the club at the minute down there at Port Adelaide. Is blokes missing, or not only missing targets, but missing goals, missing key goals as well. They kicked 14-17, I think, on the weekend. And got knocked off by, I don't know what they got knocked off by, not much, but it hurts you. It hurts you if you don't put sides away. And same with the showdown the week before.
It does.
Like Travis spoke, Ollie Wines, they just miss easy goals, and you can't do that.
That's it. You can't afford it at this level as well, especially at SANFL level where you're playing against teams that will punish you. I mean, Central District should have been 5 goals in front at quarter time last week, and we're probably lucky to get back into the game from 40 points down and end up pinching that game. So
was that an accuracy thing?
It was an accuracy thing. They missed goals that they would have kicked. Justin Hoskin, who's a quality player, missed 3 goals from 25 out directly in front that he'd kick every day of the week. So,
and he got 3 on the weekend
and he kicked 3-3. So When you create opportunities, you're going to have some misses, obviously, but to be able to settle and then to be able to recover was really good for Centrals, and they're probably the surprise packet so far early in the season.
Okay.
Thomas done a good job with him. Hey, mate, Eagles Norwood, a 2-point game. You know, Eagles are traditionally slow starters. They're coming on back for another premiership, so but 2 points over Norwood. That was a pretty good contest.
The Eagles are just adjusting to personnel changes, I guess. They lost James Cheetahs and Jack Hayes late in the piece through the AFL, the SSP program there. So they've added Colin Ballenden in, who missed round one. They've added Dylan Clark over from Essendon. So they're just easing into the season. They're bringing a lot of younger kids through. They debuted 4 players on the weekend in their league side, which for a reigning premier is probably not something that you'd want, but they're able to adapt, and they've done it really well over the years. They've been able to bring players in and then push them through to the next level.
Yeah.
And they're going to improve. Like Daniel Menzel looks as fit as he has since he was playing at Geelong and moving really, really well. He kicked 9 goals the first 2 weeks, and if he can get over those injuries and kick 50 or 60 goals, they're going to be really hard to beat this year.
I see both the Menzel scored on the weekend. They both kick goals. They're a dangerous pair, aren't they? At that level, they are. They're going to kick goals every week.
And they've added Colin Ballenden in from Brisbane, who's a 203 centimetre key forward, and there aren't too many defenders that, when he gets his hands up in the air, are going to be able to spoil the ball off him. So I think they're going to have enough opportunities where they get the ball in there, and their midfield's probably not as strong as it has been, but if they create opportunities for their forwards, they're going to score. And for Norwood, it was probably another missed opportunity. It seems to be a pattern for them over 18 months where they're in games and they're this team that loses by a goal or 3 goals every week against these top teams, but just can't get over the hump, and really sets up a big game on Friday night against Port this weekend.
They get 2 goals 8 in the final quarter on the weekend as well.
I think they kicked 2-11 from the 25-minute mark of the third quarter.
There you go. That's Norwood I'm talking about. So, gee whiz, if they convert up, then they win.
And it was the same story the week before. They had a really big period of dominance at the start of the second quarter against Glenelg and were 8 points in front, but should have been 30 points in front. And it's been a pattern with them over 18 months. They did the same thing in the semi-final against the Eagles last year as well.
Yes, they did.
So just games like that just seem to be repeating themselves with Norwood. And they've got some young forwards that look really good. Ben Jarvis has come on really well as a recruit this year, but they've just got to make the most of their opportunities when they get a chance.
Hey, mate, you touched on it. Norwood Port tonight. Out there at Cooper Stadium. What's your feel on that one?
Not often that these two teams go in 0-2. It's normally the season opener. So there'll be plenty of feeling in the game, I think. It's going to be really interesting to see where Port Adelaide sit, I think, in terms of if they get players back. Obviously, I think Dersma and Aaliyah might come back into their AFL side this week, so that'll bring a couple of guys through. So they might have a little bit of depth, but if Norwood are going to be contenders in terms of pushing for finals and top 3, they really should be winning this game on Friday night at home. It's a massive opportunity for them to get themselves on the board and get a bit of momentum with a few softer games coming up in the next couple of weeks.
You guys both touched on the inaccuracy that's going on. It's going on in the AFL as well.
Absolutely,
but let's focus on the SA. Luke, you got a theory on why we're inaccurate at the moment in front of goals?
I just think that sometimes it's inevitable. It's to do with pressure and where the ball comes inside 50. If you get inside 50s into the pocket and you're kicking from pockets as opposed to 20 metres out, it's difficult to kick goals. But the other thing is it's so micromanaged now is teams don't often get to practice it. I think if you get to practice the old days, you get 50 shots a goal a week and you're kicking 30, 35, 40, getting into routines, it makes it easier to kick those goals. But when you don't get those opportunities and don't get the chance to practice it at home.
10 minutes they'd get. From my experience of watching training and whatever, when they finish training, they'll have a few snaps and a few... But that's not serious enough for me. That's just far not serious enough, especially at AFL level. I mean, you should be... It's a skill of the game. It's like practising handball or practising tackling or whatever. There's your goals. Here's 20 balls.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think we've cut back on repetition and the right repetition, repeated repetition. So, if you go back, Matty Lloyd was probably the last one I heard talking about, and he'd say the sports science people used to come out and say, mate, that's it, you can't do any more. Yeah. You say, Nick off, I need to do this. And I know Juddy, a couple of times when I was down doing some stuff watching Carlton, he was out on his own at the end of training doing kicking stuff, and you go, if you don't practice, you can't get better at it. I think it's simple, really.
It's things like routine as well. You watch someone like Matthew Lloyd, he would throw the grass up and pull the socks up, and he knew what he was doing every time he was having a shot for goal. Even young Lockie Gollant from the Crows, he puts the ball down on his foot and counts the number of steps, and he knows what he's doing every time he has a shot. It's routine, and he generally kicks 70-75%. So if you go in and don't know what you're doing and have a different attitude every time, it changes things up.
Yeah, I think routine gives you great comfort, takes the pressure out. Luke, always great to catch up with you, mate. It will be a ripping game tonight, Norwood v Port. You need to get down and support the SANFL. It is a great competition. Stay with us still. Plenty to come on the show.